I got a question for you. Do you like to hear people who are high energy, fun, helpful, with a sincere spirit to serve and help you get ahead? Do you like to listen to people like that? Do you like to listen to them share something with you because you know that they have your best interest in mind? Well, if you do, then you're in the right place right now, because Kevin Hoover is that person. And he's here with us today to talk about how to get more listings using branding the right way. How to use branding as a real estate agent. Branding in general is a topic that, first off, to be honest, self-admittedly, I poo-pooed for years when I first started getting into marketing at like 17, 18 years old. And I got into marketing, for those of you who know, a direct response style, like writing sales copy and like hardcore sales letters. So branding is poo-pooed by that category of people in general. Now, over the last 5 years, as everything becomes noisier and noisier and noisier, more clutter, more marketing, more advertising, people are putting up walls, our customers not wanting to talk to us, right? Because they don't want to get bombarded by sales and advertising messages. I have finally begun to understand the importance of having a brand, because people nowadays are starting to trust brands, right? And so I think this is a very timely opportunity for us to understand how to do branding. What does it mean? How to do it? What's the benefit of it? How to do branding as a real estate agent? Kevin, welcome to the Get Listing Summit, my man.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Did I nail the interview?
Nailed it.
I mean, the introduction?
Yeah, nailed the introduction. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm kind of nervous now that I won't live up to it.
Well, if me messing up those 2 words was any indication of how the rest of the interview is going to go, we're going to have a lot of fun. But sincerely, thank you for being here today. And you and I were just chatting for a few minutes before this interview. And I mean it when I say, man, you're a high energy, fun, sincere guy who really wants to help people. And it comes through in everything that you're doing, the content that you've been putting out on Facebook that I've seen, and even in our interactions since we've been introduced. So I want to commend you on that.
Thank you.
Branding. Did you always buy into branding, or were you like me and a skeptic of branding at any one point in time? I'm curious.
I was completely like you, where I thought I was doing, and I used to think of branding as the logo. And I was like, I got a logo.
Yeah. Logos
know,
don't make money.
Right. And so I was, it's not that I didn't know the importance of it. I think it's that I didn't understand it enough to execute it to be effective. Right. So I think that's really what most people go through, is they think it's one thing and it's actually a lot deeper than you think.
You can't do something you don't know how to explain even in the first place.
Right. It's really tough. And I think that's really where I started. Once I figured out on my own terms kind of what branding was and how I could execute it in my daily routine and my daily task in business, then I became a big fan. And now I teach my clients that, and I see the results in them. So I know it wasn't a fluke. I know this branding is real.
Right.
It's a real thing.
So what is it not? Back to what you just said a second ago, first just understanding, like even in your own transition, your own journey of understanding, right?
Yeah.
What is branding not? What are the misconceptions that agents need to immediately eliminate and stop thinking of branding, stop thinking about in terms of branding? Like, this is not what branding is.
Gotcha. I think my tipping point was you have to group branding, advertising, marketing, and PR you have to put it in a pot and kind of then take them apart and separate them.
Okay.
So if you think of it, marketing is the big umbrella.
Okay.
And just in essence, it's saying the right thing to the right person, the right time.
Okay.
And so under marketing, you have advertising, branding, and PR. We're not going to touch PR today. That's kind of second level. But so advertising is under marketing, and advertising is you telling the world how amazing you are. And that's the billboards, that's the radio spots, that's the TV, that's the postcards, all the things that, real estate agents do, saying how wonderful we are. And then really when I got to understand that what branding is, so marketing is you saying the right thing to the right person at the right time. Advertising is you telling the world how amazing you are. And branding, in essence, is the world telling you how they feel about you. And for me, that just clicked. And it was like, oh, okay, so is the logo part of that? Yes. Is the website part of that? Yes. Is your color palette part of that? Yes. But is it only that? 100% no. And so that was really the tipping point where I was like, well, wow. And then you look at really like, okay, so marketing, advertising, branding, which one means the most in today's world? And have you bought a TV recently by chance?
I have.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see how much alike we are, because I bought one too. And I know a little bit about them, but I don't know a lot.
Same here, teeny bit.
Yeah. So I get on Amazon, I look for TVs, and I'm like, oh, this is great. 4 stars, all the gigahertz and the resolution, all that. And I go straight to the reviews, right?
Mm-hmm. How many reviews and how many of them are positive, right? Then also go read some of the negative ones just to hear what the negative stuff was.
Completely. And the reason for that is because we want to know how other people feel about this brand, this TV, this product.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's exactly right.
Essentially we're actually hungry for branding, and we don't know it. In real estate, it's amazing because we don't execute branding on a deep level because we think it's just the logo or the sign or the business card or whatever it is. It's really fascinating.
So a real estate agent isn't like Amazon, where we got tens of millions, billions of people coming on and hundreds and thousands of people leaving reviews and star ratings, right? So, and if that's, but that concept is understandable. The way you just explained branding in that concept to me is very, very understandable. And I bet it is to a lot of folks listening. With now this perhaps clarification and newfound understanding of branding in mind, how does an agent harness the power of branding? Or effectively do branding? I don't know if the word do branding actually is applicable once you look at it from the description of it's people telling you what they think about you. Is that the right? Did I say
think
that
it's
right?
a thing. Yeah, I think it's a thing. I mean, because there's a difference in brand and branding, obviously, and so when we look at how companies are built, not just real estate, but any company, it's with some sort of intention, right?
Right.
And so you can have intention of what you put into the world and how people respond and feel about that. And I think that's really where branding is fascinating, because branding is how you show up. Branding is your service. Branding is your core values. Big one. Real estate agents don't like to talk about core values. That's a little too behind the curtain stuff,
Right.
But that's really what it is. And with social media coming into play, it really has given us a chance at low cost or no cost to really put our brand out there and let people see if we're for them or not. And it's really fascinating, because some of the things that you would do to build a brand is like become an expert in real estate, in a neighborhood, in a market. Why is that important? How does that build a brand? Well, if you become an expert, you know a lot about it. You go to a barbecue, someone says, hey, the house down the street sold for $20,000 less. And you say, yeah, they just redid their kitchen. They just had, new plumbing put in. You can say all that. And then they go, oh, wow. They know their stuff, right?
Right.
And that's an element of branding. And so I think that's kind of where we're at now in today's world, is that sure, no one's coming and giving us the click 5-star reviews unless you're on the dreaded Z word site, the Zillow site, and that's a whole nother topic. But what they are doing is they are out in the community talking about who we should use. They are at the grocery store saying who we should use, or getting referrals among clients is really huge. My uncle wanted to sell his place. He called me. Who should I use? Let me look around. Let me dig some dirt up. Figure out who's doing a good job.
Was it your content? Was it one of your recent videos or posts on Facebook that I read that said that one of the ways to think about branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room?
Possibly. That sounds like something I would post. Someone else definitely said it, but that sounds like something I would post. Yeah.
Okay. I think I feel right now in the last 3 weeks, I just attribute all branding quotes to you.
I'm okay with that. I'll send you your check.
Branding quote. Kevin said it. The reason I bring that up is because what I'd like to do in the next few minutes here is let's draw some ropes, some lines, tether some ropes between the concept and the strategy of branding to getting listings. You actually did a great job with just one of those. One of those is an example of truly being a market expert in a neighborhood or a community. So if somebody brings something up, you're able to rattle off and pop off this layer 3-4 deep answer on the spot, right?
Right.
That's a brand. That's what are they going to say about you behind your back?
Right.
That dude knew what he was talking about. He knows this market all right. Right? Something like that. They're going to say that.
Exactly. Let's
draw some more lines. Some clear lines of here's an example of what branding looks like or how you go about doing it. Here's how it can help you get more listings.
Mm-hmm. So I look at a lot of activities, but really there's some that are they run really deep. Okay. And you have to remember that what we're doing with branding is we're trying to get people to feel a certain way.
Okay.
Right. And so when you look at what makes people feel a certain way, and a lot of realtors do this in their marketing and advertising, is they show the what. They show the what, my house, my open house, my just sold, my just listed. And what really resonates with people is when you show them the why and the how. You promote your values. You promote what you stand for. You promote, sort of why you're doing this. Are you in this? And then you start looking at what you're really doing. And really, real estate is about saving people time and money. And so if I put a piece of marketing out that says just listed or just sold in 2 days versus a piece of marketing out that says, I can save you $1,000 in your new home purchase through inspection process. Check the legality of that based on state. But you see what I'm saying? Like one speaks to a feeling and one speaks to the what it is you're doing. And that's one way. That's probably where I start. I think another thing that we have to get to as an industry, we have to get to a point of being empathetic to situations. And I think a lot of people say they are, but it's got to run deep. You got to really care about why someone has to move, when you're in the listing presentation.
I think one thing that I'm hearing I know that one thing that I'm hearing a lot from folks in my audience, in my community, in my tribe is how to do social media right. Right? Facebook. When we say social media, we're really saying Facebook, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of agents who have taken a stab at it realize that just posting listings on your Facebook page doesn't do much. Just posting up a listing, right?
Right.
And might even get you like ignored for 30 days the way you can do it in Facebook, where somebody else can just say, ignore this person's post for 30 days and you don't even know what's happened.
Exactly.
Can you, using that context, Facebook, a real estate agent marketing or branding on Facebook, can you share some examples, whether your own or some that you've seen, of brilliant advertising where it addressed the how and the why, or it used the how and the why approach instead of the what?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do it. And I'm glad you brought that up, really, because what we contribute to noise, the world is full of noise. Mm-hmm. And if you look at real estate as a whole, especially on social media, a vast percentage is just new listed, newly sold. Here's a new property. Here's an open house. It's just that. So if you're contributing to that, the client becomes numb to it.
Right.
They don't hear it. Mm-hmm. So what is it that you're doing differently, and how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? And you can do that a lot of ways. And I think the most success I had on a real estate post in getting real estate transactions broke every single social media rule that I've been able to read.
The rebel.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like you hear, hey, don't go over 2 minutes. Hey, don't talk about personal stuff. Hey, you should move around. And I did an 11-minute video sitting in one chair, talking about real estate and talking passionately about some of the things that I felt about real estate and supporting that intellectually with facts that weren't my own. And from that, it generated business. I got 2 listings out of it. I think 2 listings and a couple buyers from it. Nice. And it broke every rule. But I think and I started looking at why that resonated with people. And I think the reason it did is because I wasn't talking about property. I was talking about service, and I was talking about industry standards, and I was talking about, my ethics, like why I would rather tell you the truth than make a check, so that 20 years down the line, you're not stuck with a poor investment you can't get out of, or even worse, 6 months down the line, you don't have to replace the roof or something like that,
Just some real talk.
Yeah, it was a real talk. It was something you would advise a good friend.
Like a really good friend, yeah, like your buddy. Like, hey, no, don't buy that house. That thing's going to be a money hole in 6 months.
Yeah. Or, hey, there's chatter on the street about, the community or whatever, there is, and I think that's really what resonates. And that comes into the part of being human and empathetic and just not having the sales pitch, but having the real talk around the why and the how you do things. How do you do your listing presentation? Which often in my talk, I didn't have a PowerPoint. I didn't go over my numbers, none of that. Just here's my resume, and that differentiates you. That's part of branding. That's, if 5 people go in an interview for that listing and they all come in with PowerPoints, they talk about their volume. They talk about their numbers, how long they've been in business, how long they lived in the area, what they ate on Saturday, like all the things.
Right.
And right. One guy walked in and handed us his resume and asked us questions for 30 minutes. Like, who's memorable?
Right.
And that's really, I think that's really where you look at how deep branding can go. And that's why when you stop at the logo, it doesn't do what it does when you actually are consistent with your action. I get so fired up about this stuff because it almost is too simple to know
Right.
that.
Well, I feel like you have such a mastery of it that when you talk about it, it's simple. But when most people think about it, including myself to this day, it feels vague. Vague is hard.
Vegas
Right?
hard.
Vague is hard because when it's vague, there's no understanding. And when there's no understanding, you don't even know where to start, how to begin. Are you doing it right? Are you doing it wrong? Should you do it at all? Did it fail because you did it wrong or at the wrong time? Like, you know what I mean? Vague is just lots of question marks. Question marks is uncertainty. Uncertainty is pain.
Exactly. And I think that's where, if you look at how do you get a listing from branding? And it's basically how you show up. And one of the things that I really think the missing link, if we're talking, because you and I both agree, we don't like just theory. We like, go do this and things will show.
Show me I can do this 100 times, and 25 out of the 100 times something good happens. And I'll take the 75 times it doesn't, do something, whatever. You know what
Absolutely. I mean? So we'll use 100. So if 100 is a good number, it's a good round number. If you go out into the world, the community, and you connect two people that can help each other with no expectation of return.
Okay.
And you connect two people together. Say someone needs a painter. I got a guy. I know somebody. Here's a painter or an attorney or whatever. Or where can I get my hair cut? And you just connect those two people without any expectation of anything ever happening. You getting any money or at all. If you do that 100 times, you're going to get business. Because what happens every time in our mind, every time, I got my attorney from a referral from a friend. So every time I have to call my attorney, I think of that friend. Right? Every time I get my haircut, I think of that person that referred me there. So being a connector in the world as a real estate agent is probably the most powerful metric of saying, hey, that's just what I do. I'm at the grocery store. I'm at the dry cleaner. I'm asking, hey, what do you need? Here's my card. Oh, there's a good bagel shop. I moved to South Carolina from New York. So bagels were a very severe problem for me at one point. I needed a good bagel. Right? Some guy down the street says you got to go up to, oddly enough, Jersey Bagels, so I go up there, I got to get bagel now, right? But it's the connection that really solidifies the brand in the market. And what happens when you are connecting people? A neighbor comes to a neighbor, says, hey, who's your real estate agent? Who do you like in the community? Oh, Kevin's got a good bagel guy up there, told me about him. I think he's in real estate. Call him, give him a call. That's really how branding works. If there's one thing that you could actually tangibly do short term, it's just to be open and aware of where you can connect people.
Even in like a lead magnet, you could put out like I have a list of vetted, qualified contractors, vendors. You know how it is, guys. You buy services for your house. Nothing worse than a contractor who doesn't do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. You want a list of those people. You need anybody, hit me up. Yeah. Right. Even like that's like to consumers type marketing. That's an example of that too. It's so interesting. You know what you just reminded me of? I read a book called The Referral Engine. Yeah. By John Jansch. Why am I mispronouncing his name? Because I've actually spoken with him. His book, they used to do this program where they would help big corporations would actually hire them to train all of their salespeople or staff on how to go get more referrals. Right. And they were working with this they wanted to work with this insurance company. This insurance company wanted them. And in their proposal, what they outlined is that for the first 6 months, of working with this insurance company's insurance agents, they would do nothing but teach them how to go out and make introductions in their community. That's literally what they're going to do in the whole program for the first 6 months. To become more referable, they were going to go out and give referrals. Right. It just reminded me, though, what you just said just reminded me of that.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised, once you're aware of it, you'd be surprised where it comes up. Like the car wash. Like once you're aware of it, it just starts showing up. And then once you're willing to give the connection away and also look at, we all have like preferred vendors and, mortgage lenders, title companies, people that we use or our company uses, our brokerage uses that we can refer to our clients. But are we going deeper than that? And are we looking at where's my favorite gym and why? And does it match what I believe? Is their service on the level that I believe? Because if you start connecting people and they start having bad times out in the world, it's kind of counterproductive. Right. But I think that's probably the number one thing. I think being consistent with that. Consistency is a big problem especially in real estate, especially on social media, because we'll try things once and it doesn't work and we think it just doesn't work, right?
As you're sharing this, you know what I'm thinking about right now? I'm thinking about the concept of attractive characters, in marketing speak, right? Like you pick like Are you a crusader? Are you an evangelist? Are you a reluctant hero? Are you a reporter, right? Like you pick a persona.
Right.
I'm just thinking like for branding, for effective, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I'm hearing you teach this, I'm starting to think that like for branding, a part of it is figuring out who you are personality wise. Are you high energy? Are you analytical? Are you, what are you? Picking and then identifying what's a persona that you can work within that is relevant to who you are.
Yep.
Like if you like learning new things and you're curious, for example, be a reporter, then your marketing avatar or idea can be like the reporter. So then your brand is you're going out and maybe like you're posting 1 or 2 times a week, a Facebook post about local new businesses that have come out or launching something, got a deal. Just that alone, right? The idea, what I'm hearing you say is the idea, one of the ideas behind branding is how do people feel about you when they think of you?
100%. And if we can go, if we can go deep for just a minute,
Please
when I work with clients and we basically build a brand because most agents have a brand because it just happens innately. If you've done any kind of real estate business, someone's thinking something about you, whether it was intentional or it's good or not, that's a different story. So when you build a brand from kind of ground up, I start with what your beliefs are around business, of course.
These are the tactical building blocks or steps to building a brand.
Yeah, this is where I start. Before you pick a color palette, before you look at a logo, before you start building your website, before anything goes out into the world, we have to understand some things about you as a person. And we're talking personal brand, not the big umbrella brand.
Okay.
And so your personal brand, your beliefs will impact your commitments, and that impacts your results. So we have to start with your beliefs. What is it you believe you want in business? Do you want to build a team? Do you want to start your own thing? Do you want to just do, 12 deals or 8 deals or 100 deals? What is it? So we form the beliefs, and that impacts how deep we're committed. The next thing we do is we identify our core values, and core values are a set of words. And I only use 5. I say, choose 5 words. And those are a set of words that should show up on a consistent and repetitive basis in everything you put out. So for instance, and it's easy for us at this point. This is where I really push and I kind of poke people a lot, because as real estate people, our first inclination is to pick the words that we think will look the best out in the world.
Yeah, like on a business card or a flyer or something.
Like honesty. Like, of course, we should be honest, right?
Right.
Of course, that looks really good on a postcard. Let's
Integrity.
Yeah. But what we have to really do is peel back the layers and pick words that are actually true to what we believe, actually true to our core. One of my core values in my business is prosperity. And at face value, that can come off one of 2 ways: of get rich quick, or easy living, or people make certain assumptions about me. But at my core, I believe that everyone should have the chance to be prosperous, and that means just live without worry financially. And so looking at it, and I got there. It took me a long time to get there because I didn't want that to be it, but it just was.
Got it.
So I think getting to that point and saying, okay, well, what do I believe around my business? That forms my commitment to it. Then having these set of 5 core values around it. Now, when I go to social media, I've got a baseline of what to contribute.
Got it.
That make sense?
It does. Can you give me an example of 5 words that a client of yours has chosen? You don't have to tell me who they are, but maybe like one of your favorite clients. Can you give me an example of 5 words?
Sure. Trust, honesty, gratitude, authenticity, prosperity, of course, is one of mine. The list goes on and on. In fact, I can tell my clients, I say, Google core values list. And there's plenty of lists out there that if you're struggling for ideas, hundreds of words that come up. But those words all come up because, one, they normally ring true with people in most real estate. I don't know any real estate agent that's going to be like, I want to be deceptive.
Right.
Like honesty is really the big thing. And that's what we're really battling in our business, in our industry lately, is how honest and how trustworthy are we?
I'm doing something right now. Give me just a second. I'm writing down 5 words that if I was going to go right now and try to brand myself in a neighborhood, and I want to run these by you because I want to give you these words, and then I'd like you to give me an example of what content would fit around that. Does that make sense? Like, let's play that around. So let's see.
This is exciting.
I like this. Okay. 5 words that I picked. I don't know if they're right or not. Maybe I did it wrong. There's
no wrong.
Knowledge, fresh. You writing these down?
Yep.
Knowledge, fresh, helpful, simple, connected.
Good.
Like, 'cause, you know, like you always like say, that dude's connected.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
dude's connected. That guy, that gal, so helpful every time. So helpful.
Yeah. And really what you have to do, like those two words, let's use those for an example. You have to understand what that does to someone's brain that's not yours. So when you say connected, it can be one of two things. I think of like 80 slick stockbroker, right?
Mm-hmm. Gordon Gekko.
Gordon Gekko. Yeah. Could be the opposite of what you're going for. Right. So you have to put context around.
I'm thinking like a community matriarch or patriarch that like knows everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to put context around it. And that's where it comes across. And I think, a good example of that is real estate. We'll talk about, the postcards and the posts and all the things that just go out to grab attention. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking at these words, knowledge, fresh, helpful, simple, connected, right? One of the key aspects of a real estate agent that goes overlooked, I think, is we shield people from stress. Fair enough?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're doing your job right, yeah, you're guiding them through what can be it's one of the biggest things that's going to happen in their life, buying or selling a home.
Right. So if I put a content out on Facebook that said, I can reduce your stress in one simple decision. Okay, what is that, Kevin?
Right. Yeah.
But what that is, that's playing up on the helpful part. It's also playing up on the knowledge part, because what you're doing through this process that can be very daunting, and it can be stressful, and it can be taxing and uncertain, and it can cost a lot of money. And if you're telling me you shield me from stress, I get a sense of your core values and also what you're willing to do, as far as you have to be kind of connected to do that. Meaning you've got relationships with the title companies and the attorneys and the inspectors and everybody like that. It is very simple that, hey, I reduce your stress. I know what that feels like. I get a feeling in my shoulders when someone says that, right? I go, right. Thank goodness somebody's on my team.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an example of just a way you can craft your messaging to encompass your core values, but also to be a little different than kind of everybody else. Because I don't know a lot of people that are kind of coming out with, I reduce stress as their front page news.
Right. But definitely is unique and stands out.
Yeah. And it makes you kind of want to start a conversation.
Which branding should kind of make you stand out.
That's what it is.
Or be memorable afterwards.
Yeah. I find it either comes with time on task, meaning you've just done it for so long. It's kind of like the old politician that dies and is still on the ballot and people vote for him and he wins. Like, he's done it for so long. There's no other person to call, even though you're not very good at it, And so there's that, but there's also a group of realtors and agents now that they want to know how do I become myself in the market? How do I win competition? How do I attract people? And it goes back to the push and pull of business. It's much easier to attract people to your business long-term than it is to continuously push yourself onto people.
Right.
And I think that's where branding comes in. So if you start looking at messaging around, hey, you want to reduce your stress in one easy decision. Well, are you in the market to sell your home? Yes, I am. Well, I can help you do that. And that starts the dialogue and the conversation going. Good words, by the way. Good words, by the way.
Thank you. I was just imagining, when I was coming up with these words, I was imagining walking through a neighborhood and doing like a selfie 2-minute video on an iPhone of like something to do with that neighborhood while walking through the neighborhood. Yeah. Right. And just like, I like to be live and off the cuff. So I'm usually trying to be just like fresh and keep things simple and like offer value. I like meeting people. So anyway, let's go into the exercise. Like if I was an agent, how would I try to like totally just seduce a neighborhood into my brand, make them love me? You know what I mean? How would
solve a problem?
Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example. There's a neighborhood near mine and it's a cut through from 2 major roads.
Okay.
So when traffic is bad, people cut through, but it's a residential area, 25 miles an hour, kids on the street, and people drive like crazy.
Fast. Yeah.
Fast. So a good example of how can you solve a problem for them, and this is what I would do is I would buy signs that say slow children playing, or even more importantly, go stand out there with a sign and help the neighborhood solve the problem. And that gets you known. There are a lot of times, or help them celebrate something. In the summertime, there's a lot of HOAs have, block parties or little summer concerts or outdoor movies or things like that. And how can you get involved in that without putting your face on the big screen, right?
Right.
And how can you subtly get involved in that and solve a problem for a community or help a community with something they've been struggling with, or help them promote something that they're using? I think that's probably the best way to really brand yourself.
I might shift my word connected to community. That can still mean the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it creates a whole different visual.
I think it's harder to see a negative to community.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to avoid in our interview as we were going into it is that I didn't want to get into just how to make a better postcard or how to get a better landing page or anything like that. I think that, you and I could do a whole interview on that now. Hey, Kevin, let's talk about 15 tactical examples of branding. But
right.
thing is that medium changes, right? People might be using Facebook, postcards, Facebook ads, right? Video, LinkedIn, podcasting. Like there's so many different ways that an agent could market, that what I was hoping to accomplish with you today, and we are, and I'm really happy about it, because if we weren't, I wouldn't bring this up, but we are.
Good.
Yeah, is that I feel like we're giving the folks in the audience a framework that they can apply to any marketing, media, platform, et cetera. Is how do you go about effectively branding to, like you're saying, attract that business to you, stand out, be memorable, connect, and attract that business to you, versus push, and be ignored?
I think there's a lot of ways. And I think it all starts with the idea that everything works, right? If you're running Facebook ads, if you're doing postcards, if you're doing door knocking, if you're doing cold calling on expireds or FSBOs, if you're doing, Alexa skills, if you're doing whatever you're doing, everything works.
It can work.
I can find one agent doing each of those, and they're going to be like, I'm killing them.
Yeah.
Right? So what we have to do, and this goes back to our core values, is what works for us. Where's our magic? What are we most comfortable with? It's not video for everybody. Some people really are terrible at video.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I want everybody to think that, so Kevin Andre said I have to do video on Facebook. No, that's not what we're saying.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, if you're not good at it, it'll actually drive business away from you.
So don't do it.
So you either have to get good at it, or you have to go to something else that you are good at, writing or voice or graphic design, whatever it is. And I think that's really the key, is you're in search of what works for you, not what works, because everything works. And so the tactic is but you kind of have to try some things to know what works for you, especially if you're in the business, and you have to kind of see what's the ROI on some things that you're doing. And if you look at where we are in technology, I think Facebook works because everybody's on it, or social media. I'll lump Instagram's a big one for realtors in there. If you can utilize Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is a big one for referrals. Those platforms all work, but they only work if you understand that they're all different.
Got it. Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm answering your question.
You are. No, you are.
But
it's understanding that, the technology or tools that you use, this is what I'm hearing. The technology or tools that you're using will be different.
Right.
Platforms are different. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, as an example. Culturally, how people behave on those platforms is different. You got to figure out what works. Test some different things.
Yeah.
First, establish your beliefs. This is your building blocks that you shared with me that I took notes on. Beliefs. Then identify your 5 core values. With those things in mind, go into a platform, understand what's the behavioral norm on a platform, plug into that community, but with your beliefs and your core values in mind, and start trying to put out content, really, that is aligned with your beliefs and your core values. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, it all comes back to value. When you're looking at what do I put into the world, and we hear that word a lot. It's kind of a punch word these days.
Yeah.
But really what it is, and I see a lot of agents doing it, is they're putting things out into the world that are valuable to them, but not much that's valuable to the customer, the client.
Right. You're putting out what you think, what you want people to hear, not what they want to hear.
Yeah. And that's why when you go to LinkedIn and you see someone who's just put their listing up on LinkedIn, and you just go, that's not what this is for.
Right.
Like LinkedIn is B2B. Right. Facebook is the B2C. And so you have to understand on a basic level, at least, what kind of messaging from your brand would go into LinkedIn versus Instagram versus Facebook versus Pinterest, and all the other, things that could happen. But I think the real principle is getting back to value. And it goes back to that analogy of the community. You go into a community and you solve a problem. Facebook is your community. Mm-hmm. So what problem am I solving today? It doesn't have to be everything. And I tell people, they get overwhelmed with content because they want to solve everything. How do I tell people I'm the best? You don't. You niche down, go micro, solve a specific problem that you know exists in real estate for your market, and see what you get.
So you could do something like, obviously people who are thinking about selling want to sell their home. And correct me if I'm wrong, or dig deeper on this and broaden out the scope if I'm too narrow here. But let's say that people want to sell their home, obviously, for top dollar. Right. Well, what I could probably do if I was going to a neighborhood is go look at all the properties that have sold recently for above average price, and then make a social media post, maybe a picture of that house. But the written up message is, this house sold for $23,000 above average value. And people might be wondering why. Well, if you're thinking about selling your home, in my experience and my understanding of the marketplace, they sold better because they had just done X, Y, and Z to their property, and it had this feature and this amenity and that, and there's only 3 other properties in the whole market or whatever that have that. This is why. So I just want you to know that, if you're thinking about selling, like, this is what can cause a home to sell for $23,000 above average price. So it's not even my listing. It wasn't even my sale. It's not, I'm just putting out, like, here's why a property sold for above average value.
Yep. That establishes you as the expert, but it also gives people something that would take them a lot of time to figure out. Mm-hmm. So everything goes back to saving people time or money. One of those two things, that's what they really need an agent for.
Yeah. And a post like that once a week would make a big difference than trying to just post a listing all the time.
Yeah. Right? It's valuable information. Whether they use it with you or not, there's no way to, you can't, stranglehold them into using you as an agent. But what you can do is show them a lot of reasons why they should. Mm-hmm. And if you do that on a consistent basis, the business shows up. Most of my clients, the clients that do the work and are really committed and they dive deep, we've seen about, from the time you start the messaging on Facebook and the branding on Facebook, it's about 6 months before the money shows up. Right.
But once it starts showing up, I have to imagine by that point, it's so built up that
it's steady.
It's a steady flow. It's a river.
It's steady.
And then you just keep going. You just keep maintaining.
Yeah. And really it takes 6 months, because what you're doing is you're retraining people how they think about you.
Yes. Well, how they probably see all real estate agents in general, salespeople, commission takers, right? So they got to work through all that. And then how do they see you?
Yeah. 100%. And the days of, if you look at most of in any market, if you look at like the number one team or the number one, brand outside of the big brokerages that are nationwide, they all started with an agent, but they were at a different time when we could temper what people thought a little easier. Now, if I have a listing appointment at 2:00, that person is probably on my Facebook page scouting me out before I get there. So if I'm doing something on Saturday night that I shouldn't be doing, that's counterintuitive to my brand, and I go in, I say, hey, integrity. And they're like, but you were in an argument on Facebook on Saturday night.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So you have to be careful. We're always on when it comes to upholding our brand. And that's why you have to really go back and find out if your core values are part of your fabric and not just words you dreamt up to create a marketing campaign around it.
What do you wish what do you wish was a question that agents would ask you more often about branding that they don't ask you enough?
Oh man, that's a good one. I find that most agents that come into my world, they don't understand branding fully, like most people, because it's not the kind of thing that's like, oh, I should know that. It's kind of this obscure, vague thing until you really dive in, and then you realize that it's actually very, very useful. I think the one thing that I wish agents, man, that's a good one. I don't know that there is one thing. I think if I could tell agents one thing to do in their branding today, that I wish everyone that comes to me, I wish they had started 3 months ago. If you come to me and it's day one, we just met, and you say, Kevin, I want you to help me on branding, I will have wished that you had started 3 months ago so that we could really launch this thing. I wish they would just take action. Just take action. Start putting things out into the world that are of value and see what is going to resonate with the people you're trying to serve. Start putting connections out into the world and offering things for free, your knowledge for free, and stop holding things so close to your chest, because that's not why people pay you anyway, right? As a real estate agent, and just start doing things and figuring it out. Then by the time you came to me, I could say, well, great, let's get back to this. This didn't work because it's not in line with your core values. This worked because it is. And so let's duplicate that. And it would just be an easier process. I don't know that there's one question an agent could or should ask me, because everyone's so individual. Some people want different things out of this business.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, I like that answer.
Was that a dodge? Was that a dodge of the question?
No, it's not. But you set it up for then what I'm going to treat as my final question for today's interview, because I want to respect your time. I know we're coming up on our time. Maybe this one I think might be able to set you up to give a little bit more texture and depth. If you woke up tomorrow morning with the power to wave a magic wand and make every real estate agent practicing real estate in the nation right now immediately form and stick to 3 brand building habits that they consistently stuck to, rain or shine, what would those 3 habits be that you know universally would work?
Ooh, I love this one. And actually, I know there's a lot, but I'm going to go with 3 that I have just off my gut, because that's where I operate best. I think the first one would be empathetic and be human. I'll combine that as one. Okay. I think we show up as being sterile a lot of times, and being commission breathed and being all about the sale.
Corporate. Yeah.
Very
pictures on business cards that are not us.
Yeah. Or the pictures from the 1980s, and it's,
yeah. And you're 30 years older now.
Yeah. So I think just being a little more human, a little more empathetic would be the first one. I think consistency is
number 2.
Number 2, consistency in a lot of areas, though. Consistency not only in how you present to the public and the value you're adding to the public, but also in how you treat the real estate transaction. Mm-hmm. It's a similar process every time to give similar service, regardless of price, regardless of commission structure. It's similar service across the board. And I think the last one is expertise. I really think that's where our future and our legacy is. We have to get to a point where, because real estate's a low entry cost business.
Right.
So we have to get to a point where we're operating above all the automated information that people can get from Google or anywhere else. We have to operate on an expert level, and that's where our value is, I think.
How does one do that? Can you break that one down just a little bit farther? What are 2 to 3 sub habits of habit number 3 that would make the realization of habit number 3 a byproduct, like a foregone conclusion?
Right. So previewing property. Yeah, previewing property. I'm a big promoter of that. Like, especially in your neighborhoods that you're targeting, that you really want to work in. Okay. Knowing what's going on with all the things that are on the market, even if it's not yours, previewing that property is definitely one that I would do. Let's see. I would say not relying on your support staff, meaning if you have a transaction coordinator or a closing coordinator, you still have to know the contract inside and out. And so knowing your stuff, so that if you do have to step up to the plate and serve a client on a level you're not accustomed to, or not that you don't normally serve, you've got the experience to fulfill that. And the last one would be, I think you should be friends with every realtor in your market.
What, really? Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I have nothing against that, but why?
I come from abundance, and I don't believe that I believe there's enough for everybody. And I believe we work together as a whole far better than we do as a bunch of individuals. And I can't tell you how many times that I've had really great experiences with people I was connected with in real estate, and they were on the other side of the coin. And I just think it makes a better industry. I really do.
I appreciate that. I can totally appreciate that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Kevin, this has been a real pleasure and real blast. You know, this is actually probably is the most, and I'm not just saying this to be nice, this is probably the most informative conversation I've ever had around branding.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that compliment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the difference between reading a book and just having a conversation with somebody that can answer your unique questions, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Speaking of unique questions, you, the listener, Kevin is a very generous man. If you go to kevinhoover.org, so Kevin Hoover, HOOVER.org, Kevin very generously is offering to give away free coaching calls to anybody here on the Get Listing Summit that wants to have a chat with him. No expectation, no strings attached, real, genuine coaching. So if you're still here, which you are, then that means this content meant something to you. You connected with you found it important, you found it meaningful, you found it value, obviously, or you wouldn't have invested your time this far into the interview. If you want to actually get some value out of it, though, besides just knowledge, actual results, you need to take action. If you have any questions around taking action that I haven't asked, and obviously I probably haven't, because there's thousands of you, just go to the guy himself. The way Kevin has shown up here on this interview is actually, speaking of consistency, how he has shown up consistently with me in every interaction we've had since we got introduced to each other about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, or something like that. So if you want to take action on using branding to get more listings, to build your business, to get more referral partnerships, to build a better community for yourself, to make a better impact on your sphere of influence, go to kevinhoover.org. And right there at the top of his page is going to be a button that says to schedule a free coaching call. Go there right now, schedule a free coaching call. For those of you watching this video, you can also click on the link below this interview, and it'll take you straight to that page. And you can go set yourself up with a free coaching call. What I would do right now, pro tip, is as you go do that, write down the questions that are buzzing through your mind right now about how to take action on this. Write those down right now, fresh from this interview, fresh from this content. Have those written down and ready for your conversation with Kevin, so that then when you talk to him, you know exactly what you need answered. You remember this, you won't have to try to remember this whole interview. You'll know where you need the most help to implement. And I'm sure that Kevin, just like with me, will be able to give you a lot of actionable insights and steps on how to go implement. So, and again, no strings attached. Kevin, I want to acknowledge you again for just your spirit of generosity. In your spirit of just contribution. I know that I already acknowledged it in private one-on-one before we started this interview, but you've shown up as a person of contribution and a lot of value, and a real willingness and eagerness to help, support, contribute. And I want to acknowledge that. You've done that with me in our relationship. You've done that with me here on this interview today for the entire audience. And I see you consistently do that on your Facebook newsfeed, on your Facebook page, right? Because we're friends on Facebook. So you walk the talk. And that's the second thing that I would acknowledge you on today, is not only your spirit of contribution and generosity, but also your consistency in walking the talk. So everything that you've talked about today, I can firsthand attest to. I see you walk it.
Thank you.
And so it's really cool to see that. It's really cool to connect with somebody who, they're preaching, they're doing what they're preaching. And so I want to acknowledge you for that in front of everybody here in my audience and on my behalf. So thank you for being you and for doing those things. I
appreciate that. Thank you very much. It means a lot. Sure does. And thank you for doing what you do, because this is pretty awesome.
I appreciate that. Thanks, man. All right. Well, on behalf of everybody here at the Get Listing Summit and myself, Kevin, a big thank you for today's time, for today's value, and for your offer to give away free coaching calls to anybody who wants to avail themselves of some help from you. That's really generous of you. And I just want to say a big thank you.
Thank you.